Imagine a peaceful rustic corner of the township of Hackensack until 1871, called good ground by the Lenape Indians when they lived here. 2.5 miles of farms, woodland, and orchards, with rolling hills to the water's edge. A peninsula shaped somewhat like Manhattan Island, with clean water on 3 sides. You will have a mental picture of Ridgefield Park of yesterday. This map shows the 17 original farms as they existed in the period between 1850 and 1860. 3 of the farms were owned by the Brewsters, 3 by Brinkerhoffs, and 3 by Paulisons. This map shows a number of streets which did not exist in 1850, but are shown on the map to indicate the approximate boundaries of the farms. At this time, there were only 4 roads in use. They were Old Hackensack Road, now Main Street, from Queen Anne Road to a road connecting with the Bergen Turnpike. Winnet Avenue, now Route 46, a short road probably connecting some farms with the main roads. Teaneck Public Road, leading from Schralenberg to the Bergen Turnpike. And Bergen Turnpike, a private road, a toll road, the main traffic artery built in 1804. The farmers from our area and all points west had to use the turnpike to get to the New York market. How much did it cost to use the Bergen Turnpike? There were 4 toll gates, one in Little Ferry at the 9-Mile House, where there was a wooden bridge crossing the Hackensack River, and the other at the approach to the bridge crossing the Overpeck Creek to Ridgefield. We are not sure where the other 2 toll gates were. At each of the toll gates, the rates were posted on signs like this one. A 1-horse vehicle was 5 cents. 2-horse vehicles were 10 cents. Horse and mule and rider were 4 cents. Neat cattle, 2 cents. Excursion rates. Tolls were collected on the turnpike until 1915. In 1860, Edward Albertus acquired about 90 acres from farmer Paul Paulison. He paid $300 an acre for upland and $50 an acre for woodland. During the next 5 years, he added to his holdings by purchasing more farmland from John Zabriskie and Jacob Brinkerhoff, and in 1867 he formed the Ridgefield Land and Building Company. They owned the entire center section of the park, from Hobart Street to Preston Street, from the river to the meadow. The property was divided into lots of 50 by 200 feet and were priced at $500 each. Mr. Albertus undoubtedly had in mind making the park into a suburban community. His company built 2 model homes on the northeast and the southeast corners of 3rd Street, now Park Street, and Bergen Avenue. But sales were slow, probably because of the lack of transportation. There was no railroad, so buyers had to take a train to Ridgefield and a horse-drawn carriage to the property. This map says the Cherry Hill Railroad was under construction and would connect this property with the Northern Railroad in Ridgefield. But the Cherry Hill Railroad was never built. In 1871, the territory on the east bank of the Hackensack River, including what is now Ridgefield Park, by an act of legislature, ceased to be Hackensack Township and became the Township of Ridgefield. Then came the Panic of 1873. The whole country was hit by a serious depression. The dream of E.K. Albertus was shattered. A good many lots, brought for speculation, were lost. Many of the holdings of this company were sold at auction. Bank failures were common. One of the 2 model homes was sold with 1/4 of the entire block for $1,200. That model home is now Temple Emmanuel. This map, filed in September of 1867, shows Overpeck River, not Overpeck Creek. Central Avenue, now Euclid Avenue. Preston Street was then 1st Street. Other cross streets were numbered down to 6th Street, now Hobart Street. Lincoln Avenue was Alasco Avenue. Paulison Avenue was River Avenue. And it shows the distances to the 42nd Street Ferry and to Hoboken and other places of importance to property buyers. About 10 years after the Panic of 1873, a new group was formed by Frank McGreedy to restart the move from farming to residential development. They formed the Ridgefield Park Lot and Building Association and opened an office at 79 Nassau Street in New York City. This group acquired 380 lots in the center of the park, all to the west of Old Hackensack Road, as shown on this map, which was prepared from a survey made in January of 1884. All this property had been owned by the Albertus Group, which was destroyed by the Panic of 1873. These lots were small, 25-foot frontage, and they were priced at $45 each. The map shows two railroads, the New Jersey Midland Railway, later known as the Susquehanna, which came through in 1871 and 1872, and the New York West Shore and Buffalo Railroad, which came through in 1884 and 1885. The West Shore, which ran to the 42nd Street Ferry, was to become the most important factor in the growth of Ridgefield Park. This map answers a question which had been asked 1,000 times. Where was the famous old resort hotel? The hotel property ran from the old Hackensack Road to the river, and from Mount Vernon Street to Park Street. There was no Grove Street. The map also indicates the location of the hotel stables, the vegetable gardens, and the wharf. Westview, the city of homes, says this advertising piece, used to sell lots in a third of the big developments. The Stratton family purchased most of the Paulison farms in 1891 and plotted the land into lots of 25 by 120 feet and sold them for $300 each. This was a very successful development due in no small part to a young Swedish gentleman named Carl Hallberg. From his office on 42nd Street in New York City, he sold so many lots to his Swedish friends and acquaintances that Westview became a Swedish settlement. Of course, Mr. Hallberg built a home in Westview and became a prominent citizen and businessman in the village. This advertising piece or map was created in 1893 and says, with a certainty of the greatest traffic bridge in the world across the Hudson, which will bring Westview within 5 miles or 7-minute ride to New York City. It also tells us that 22 trains a day run to Westview and that there are free excursions every Saturday from the 42nd Street Ferry. It shows a Westview Railroad station, which might have been premature, but there was a Westview station later. Also shown are sketches of a dozen or so homes, including the residence of Carl Hallberg, and a sketch of the proposed Swedish church, which was built in 1896. Westview is one section of the village which, to some degree, retained the name that the realty developers gave it. This is where the city folk would come to spend the summer, the Ridgefield Park Hotel. It was built by Abraham Bronson of Hackensack in 1870. It was 6 stories high, 270 feet long, and it cost $70,000 to build. Entrances were on Mount Vernon Street, Old Hackensack Road, and Park Street. The menu also acted as a brochure. Says, this new and elegant hotel was opened on May 15th for the reception of boarders. The hotel is situated at Ridgefield Park on the Midland Railroad about 10 miles from New York. Ridgefield Park is one of the finest suburban locations in the neighborhood of New York, possessing all the requisites for a pleasant residence during the summer months. The building is new and was built expressly for a summer hotel. It contains all the modern improvements, billiard rooms, bathrooms, gas, etc. A splendid wide piazza, large croquet grounds, magnificent grove, bathing and boating in the Hackensack River. With all of that, business was not good. The hotel was a white elephant, and sometime after 1875, it was sold to Mrs. Bullman for $23,000. In August 1883, while being remodeled for a New York club, the showplace was destroyed by fire. The building was not covered by insurance. This is the old Christie homestead, and it still stands on Homestead Place. The Christie family owned and lived in this house as far back as 1844, but it was previously occupied by Paul Paulison. This old house, which is estimated to be 320 years old, may have been built by Hendrik Brinkerhoff, who acquired a tract of land in this area as early as 1685. David Christie purchased this house for his son in 1844. According to the man sitting on the far left, the house in this picture was the home of Horatio Brewster. The Brewsters came here from Fairview in 1850 and owned 3 of the original farms. This is Mergler's Corner. It was located on the corner of Main and Mount Vernon Street in 1895. The village of Ridgefield Park had many pioneers who contributed greatly to the growth of the village, and high on the list would be Conrad Mergler, who came here in 1887. Mergler's Corner was a general store where you can buy almost anything. The local newspaper during the time referred to it as Wanamaker's of Ridgefield Park. It was the center of much civic activity, and for several years it was the post office. The volunteer fire department was born at a meeting held here, as it was the gathering place. Conrad Mergler, standing at the far right, was a community leader. He was co-founder of the Volunteer Fire Department, co-founder of the First National Bank, co-founder of the Park and Building Loan Association, president of the Board of Education, president of the Board of Trade, and the postman. This is Mergler's Corner in the early 1900s, after the building was remodeled by Charles Reinhardt, who built many of the historical structures in the village, such as the Town Hall and Reinhardt's Hotel. Conrad Mergler operated his general store at this location until he retired in 1919. This is the first firehouse, Hose Company No. 1, in 1892. It was located right where Hose Company No. 1 is today, on Mount Vernon Street. The Volunteer Fire Company was formed in 1891 at Mergler's store and had 25 charter members. This photo shows a 2-wheeled jumper with a hose and equipment. It was purchased from a Long Island fire company in 1895 and was pulled from Long Island to Ridgefield Park by 5 members of the company. In 1895, the Board of Trustees passed an ordinance creating a fire department, and soon Hose Company No. 1, along with the Friendship Hook and Ladder Company No. 1, came under village control. The bell tower in the back of the building was erected in 1898. It was 60 feet tall and served as an alarm to supplement the fire alarms in the town. The company was motorized in 1911 when they bought a used Thomas Flyer chassis for $400. The Old Town Hall was located on a corner of Hackensack Road and Grove Street. It was built by Charles Reinhardt sometime after 1892. Prior to 1892, Ridgefield Park was part of the township of Ridgefield, and some of the residents wanted a change, to have their own government. A referendum was held, and the question was, should we separate from the township of Ridgefield? Separation was approved by a vote of 84 to 62, and the legislature passed the Winton Act, providing for the incorporation of Ridgefield Park as a village. Ridgefield Park was incorporated as a village with 620 acres and 668 people. 5 trustees were to be elected to govern the new village, and 23 candidates entered the contest. 5 men were elected, and the first meeting of the newly elected trustees was held at the home of Tom Brewster. The first order of business was lighting up the town, with oil lamps on posts in the central area of the village. The first annual budget was set at $800. The township of Ridgefield still controlled our school and the assessment and collection of taxes, which made the trustees and residents unhappy. By another act of the legislature, Overpeck Township was created in 1896. The boundary lines of the township were the same as the village. Ridgefield Park now had control of its schools and the assessment and collection of taxes. This house was owned by John Zabriskie, who owned one of the original farms here in the village. It was situated on the southeast corner of Park Street and Old Hackensack Road, facing Park Street. His house was bounded by Park Street, Mount Vernon Street, Old Hackensack Road, and Teaneck Road. This house was later owned by Archie Lees, a prominent merchant who built a building on the Main Street side and operated Lee's Market on the premises for a number of years. The Overpeck Hotel was one of several hotels on Bergen Turnpike and was located just about where Teaneck Road ends at the pike. The hotel was operating as far back as 1860 and had many owners, such as Bill Wartman and Louis Euchre. In back of the hotel, there was a large picnic area and a bathing beach. It was a popular place and was used extensively by village residents in early 1900s. Another of the old hotels along the Bergen Turnpike was the M.J. Collins Hotel. It was located on the corner of Ridgefield Avenue at the railroad tracks. To the left of the picture, you see a building known as the Tin Triangle. In that building, Mr. E.R. Stevens operated a big newspaper delivery business serving an extensive area and an ice cream parlor. The business was established in 1892, and in 1913, the building was destroyed by a fire, in which Mr. Stevens lost his life. This beautiful old residence was on the site now occupied by the Elks Club. It faced the south, and this picture was taken from the railroad tracks. It was built about 1870 by R.A. Robertson, who did a considerable building in the town. Mr. Robertson was a victim of the Panic of 1873 and eventually lost most of his holdings, including this property. In 1885, the property was sold for $40,000 to Peter Merhoff. From 1885 till the house was demolished in 1926 or 1927, it was known as the Merhoff Mansion. Peter Merhoff had the reputation of being a hospitable gentleman. He allowed the house to be used for concerts, lectures, and dance parties. It was sort of a social center for the new settlement of commuters. This was the home of Peter Kenny, who came here in 1870. In later years, it became the Bishop Manor, a hotel and restaurant as late as 1927. It was located on the southeast corner of Bergen Avenue and Mount Vernon Street. When the New Jersey Midland Railroad ran tracks through in 1871 or 1872, the trains did not stop because there was no station. Two early commuters, Mortimer Smith and Peter Kenny, decided to start a collection that received $200 and built a station. This old station, located at the foot of Mount Vernon Street, may have been the first. When the West Shore Railroad was completed in 1884-1885, it was the big factor in the growth of the village. There were a total of 3 stations: Westview, located at the foot of Central Avenue, Little Ferry, at the Bergen Turnpike, and the one shown in the picture, which was the largest one. This station was gutted by fire in 1923, but was rebuilt and used until 1927, when the new station was built at a cost of about $100,000. In the early 1900s, Ridgefield Park was a boom town. People were flocking to the new attractive town in the country. As many as 400 homes were built in 1 year. Most of the residents were commuters. There was a traffic problem, with people running to catch trains. Getting on and off trains was dangerous. People were getting hurt. Some were killed. The solution was a footbridge built over the West Shore tracks. This picture is of the dedication in 1903. As the big farms disappeared to make way for the developers, a few smaller ones came into being, and they were in existence well into the 1900s. The Van Idestein Farm, the Malia Farm, and the Clausen Farm were on or just off Teaneck Road. This is the Clausen farmhouse after the fire. The farm covered the property from Preston Street to East Grand Avenue, from Teaneck Road to the edge of the hill leading to the meadow. The house was at the edge of the hill, a bit north of Preston Street, and was destroyed by fire in 1921. Reinhardt's Hotel, built in 1904, and was located on Paulison Avenue, between Grove Street and Park Street. It had a large auditorium, bowling alleys, along with a restaurant and a separate bar. The auditorium was used for local shows and political rallies. In 1913, there was a fire in the hotel that caused $10,000 worth of damage, but soon rebuilt on a less elaborate scale. It did not have an auditorium or bowling alley. This picture is of the rebuilt structure. Mr. Reinhardt eventually sold the hotel, and in 1929 it was destroyed by fire. This small building was Ridgefield Park's first library, located on Mount Vernon Street, somewhere around Lincoln Avenue. It was owned by Mrs. E. M. Barnes and/or Mortimer Smith, who were the founders of the Union Church. It also was the Women's Bazaar, a little shop operated for the benefit of the church. A sign on the front of the building read, "Free Library, Women's Bazaar, open Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturday from 2 to 6, and on Saturday evening from 7 to 9. The library was an independent group, used the building rent-free until 1911, when they moved to a new municipal building. The Library Association transferred all of its property to the trustees of the Free Public Library in January 1921. In the early 1920s, Ridgefield Park had 3 boat clubs: the Westview Boat Club, the Overpeck Boat Club, and this one, the Ridgefield Park Boat Club. This club was on the Hackensack River at the foot of Brinkerhoff Street. It was founded in 1895, and for $1 a month dues, members had the use of canoes, tennis courts, handball courts, along with pool and billiard tables. Willie Hopp, who was one of the greatest billiard players in history, was a member of the Ridgefield Park Boat Club. The clubhouse was destroyed by fire in the summer of 1924. This is the residence of T.M. Brewster. The Brewster family were among the pioneer residents of the village, having settled here in 1852. They owned 3 of the original farms. T.M., or Tom as he was known as, was elected to the first board of village trustees in 1892, and the first meeting of the board was held at his residence. This house was located where Brewster Park is. This is the Opera House that was situated on the southwest corner of Main Street and Park Street. At the time of this picture, Perils of Pauline was the feature, which leads us to believe this photo was taken about 1915. The Opera House was later changed to the Strand and was located where M.K. Valencia is today. This is the First National Bank of Ridgefield Park. The bank was founded in 1910 with a capital of $25,000 by Conrad Mergler and Cyrus Lozier, who owned the lumber yard. In 1914 or 1915, the bank built its own building on the corner of Main and Mount Vernon Street, and in 1919, the name was changed to the Ridgefield Park Trust Company. The other store in this picture was a shoe store, and after the bank moved, its space was occupied by the post office, who had a 5-year lease, with rent being $44 a month. This is Shields Hall, the general store of John Shields. The first public school classes were held here, along with the first church services, both Catholic and Protestant. The hall on the second floor was also rented to political clubs and was used for Saturday night dances. This is our first official school, built in 1886 on Central Avenue and 6th Street. The school had 1 room, 1 teacher, and had 20 students. After 1 year, an additional teacher was hired at a salary of $300 a year. In 1890, an addition with 4 rooms was built to the rear of the building. The original structure shown in the picture was demolished for Washington Irving School. The 4-room addition remained and was used for many years until Washington Irving was demolished. This is a picture of the students of School Number 1 in 1891. Many of the boys and girls in the picture grew up to be prominent citizens of the village. The 2 teachers located in the center are Miss Cozen and Miss Myers. Ridgefield Park was growing, so School Number 2 was built on the corner of 8th Street and Hackensack Avenue and was dedicated on September 4th, 1897. The village directory, published in 1909, described the school in these words: "A fine commodious structure, beautifully situated and kept, absolutely safe, but owing to rapidly increasing population, inadequate in capacity. In 1911 or 1912, School Number 2 became Ridgefield Park High School. It remained the high school until the school on Bergen Avenue was opened in 1917 or 1918. For a time after World War I, the building was the American Legion Hall. This is Washington Irving School. It was built around 1904 for $30,000 to replace the original one-room schoolhouse on Euclid Avenue and Hobart Street. It was a grammar school except for the attic, and one room on the second floor was the Ridgefield Park High School. The high school used that space until 1912 when it moved to School Number 2. This is a picture of students and teachers of Ridgefield Park High School in 1906. There are only 2 boys shown in this picture out of a total of 21 students. A few more boys attended the school but were absent when this picture was taken. The faculty standing in the rear by the chalkboard are Walter Davis, who was the principal and a teacher. He is standing with 2 other teachers, Genevieve Clark and Martha Redding. In 1910, they hired a 4th teacher by the name of Rose Lewis. St. Francis Church was the first church built in Ridgefield Park, standing on the same corner where the present church is now, at Euclid Avenue and Mount Vernon Street. The parish was organized in 1889, and the first services were held in Shields Hall. The cornerstone of this church was laid in 1889 and dedicated in July of 1890. It cost $2,107 and was lighted by kerosene lamps and heated by a potbelly stove. It was used until September 1915, when a new church and school was built on Bergen Avenue and Mount Vernon Street. To the left of the church is a structure which was called Flanagan's Barn. It was used for dances and socials by the young people, and part of it was outfitted as a gymnasium used by the St. Francis Boys Club. Okay. This is the Union Church and was organized in April of 1890 by Mrs. E. M. Barnes and Mortimer Smith. This structure was completed in May of 1891. The first full-time pastor was Reverend Allen B. McNeil, who was installed in June 1893. Today it is the Civic Center. The first Methodist church, built on the site of the present church, was completed and opened in April 1895. It cost $1,490 to build, was lighted with oil lamps, and heated by a potbelly stove. Methodist services were first held in Shields Hall in November 1890, and later in the Town Hall. The first Board of Trustees was elected in 1891, and the church was incorporated in the same year. A search was started for property on which to build a church. Lots were purchased on 5th Street, now Cedar Street, and that's where the church stands today. In October of 1895, the Scandinavian Lutheran Church was organized at the home of Andrew Jepson. The church was located on the west side of 5th Street, south of Central Avenue, and was completed by Thanksgiving of 1896. For 12 years, it was served by pastors from neighboring parishes until Reverend Fritloff York began his pastorate in 1908. Sometime prior to 1942, the word Scandinavian was dropped from the official title of the parish, which passed through a period of transition from the Swedish to the English language. The first Congregational Church was organized in the early 1900s by a group of people who split from the Methodist Church. The first service was held in April 1906 in the Hook and Ladder Company Firehouse on Euclid Avenue, and later in the Old Town Hall on Hackensack Road. The church was built on Cedar Street and Euclid Avenue, and cornerstone was laid in 1908. In 1929, the village purchased the property, built an addition, and today it is the public library. This building is Temple Emmanuel, located on the corner of Park Street and Bergen Avenue. It was built as a model home by Ridgefield Land and Building around 1870. After falling victim to the panic of 1871, Ridgefield Land and Building Company sold it for $1,200. The temple acquired the property in 1921. The Jewish congregation left this location in 2005 due to a decline in the local Jewish population. Currently, it is home to a Korean church. This is a 1910 picture of the men of Hose Company No. 1, our first fire company, which was incorporated in January of 1892. Their first piece of firefighting apparatus was a two-wheel jumper, and you can see the top of the wheels a bit to the right of center. In March 1895, the company came under village control, and in that same year, they purchased the handsome four-wheel carriage, which you can see to the left of center. This is the carriage the men pulled from Long Island to its new home in Ridgefield Park. The company offered $2 to the first person arriving with a horse to draw the carriage to and from fires. But the response was poor, and most often the men pulled the carriage themselves. This was a colorful company with a uniform of red shirts and black trousers until 1921, when the uniforms were standardized. In February 1892, a month after Hose Company No. 1 was founded, a group of dedicated citizens launched a move for a hook and ladder unit. Friendship Hook and Ladder Company was incorporated, and the company's first act was to purchase a small hand-drawn hook and ladder from a Long Island company for $100. Several months later, the members purchased a lot on Euclid Avenue for the construction of a firehouse, and lumber was obtained from T.M. Brewster, a member of the company. The men supplied most of the labor, and, while the house was being constructed, the new truck was housed in T.M. Brewster's barn. The first meeting was held in the new firehouse in September 1892. In 1906, the company purchased a brand new hand-drawn truck for $565 and sold the old one to Teaneck for $100. In 1912, the company purchased a second-hand Pope Hartford touring car and rigged it up to be a hook and ladder truck for its first auto apparatus. This picture was taken in 1910, and in 1918, the company was reincorporated as Hook and Ladder Company No. 1. Early in 1905, residents circulated a petition for the establishment of a hose company in the lower section of the town, and in July of that year, Overpeck Hose Company No. 2 was incorporated. The village trustees accepted the company as part of the fire department of the village. The company was on duty with a jumper and hose donated by Louis Euchre, a member of the truck company. In February 1906, the company purchased a beautiful hose wagon in Staten Island for $287. It was brought from Staten Island by a team of horses and was housed in the truck company building. It was used mainly for parades, pulled by horses loaned by T.M. Brewster. The company purchased a lot on Euclid Avenue and built the firehouse, which was completed in 1908, and in 1920, the company changed its name to R.P. Hose Company No. 2. The sign on the right side of the building reads, Overpeck Building and Loan Association meets here every fourth Monday at 8 p.m. This is a 1910 picture. The population of Westview was growing. Fire protection was needed. A group of men met in April 1906 and organized Westview Hose Company No. 3. The next month, the company purchased a hose carriage with 500 feet of hose for $100, and the members dragged it from Staten Island to Westview. This 1910 photo, taken on Hackensack Avenue and 6th Street, shows the men of the company and the hose carriage. The apparatus was kept in the barns of members until July 1911, when the new firehouse was officially opened. Early in 1914, the town purchased a Peerless chassis. The company furnished it with a body, and Hose Company No. 3 was motorized. In 1920, the name of the company was officially changed to Ridgefield Park Hose Company No. 3. A bad fire on Edwin Street in October 1910 awakened residents of the Hazelton Heights section to the need of fire protection. Almost immediately, a group of residents decided to form Hazelton Heights Fire Company No. 4. Westview Hose Company No. 3, who had purchased a four-wheel carriage, donated its two-wheel jumper to Hazelton Heights, and the new company was ready for action. The jumper was the company's only equipment until May 1912, when they acquired a hand-drawn hook and ladder truck, later converted to a horse-drawn apparatus. Then the company became a hook and ladder unit and has remained one since. The company was motorized in 1914 when the town purchased a Graham chassis. In March 1922, the company was designated as Ridgefield Park Hook and Ladder Company No. 2, and the name Hazelton Heights Fire Company No. 4 was dropped. The beautiful horses, George and Babe, were owned by Mr. Spinelli, who is in the driver's seat next to Frank Bell. Their chief occupation was hauling lumber for the local lumber yard. In August 1911, a meeting was held in the Overpeck Park Hotel to talk about fire protection in the area south of Route 46. This led to the formation of Active Chemical and Hose Company of Ridgefield Park. The new company had a difficult time during its early years. Its apparatus was meager, and its quarters were changed frequently. In April 1912, the village accepted the company into the fire department, and that same month the men purchased an EMF touring car, constructed a body and rigged it up with 2 fire extinguishers. With the help from the new village commissioner in 1913, the EMF was exchanged for a Winton chassis, which was transformed into a first-class piece of fire apparatus. The next headquarters was a boathouse leased from Louis Euchre. It was fine except for problems when the tide was high. In March 1917, the company adopted its present name, Ridgefield Park Hose Company No. 4. This picture of the members of Hose 4 is dated 1917. Did you ever wonder what the young men of Ridgefield Park did for fun in 1888? Some went rowing down the Hackensack River all the way to Staten Island, while others were part of the Ridgefield Park Bicycle Club, shown in this picture. The photo was copied from a tintype taken on the boardwalk in Coney Island in 1888. 2 of the boys shown are Charles Merhoff and Morton Brewster. Since 1894, the village has been known for celebrating the 4th of July. This is a picture of the 1905 4th of July committee in front of the Women's Bazaar. In the early days, the 4th of July programs often advertised the fast-growing village because the programs were read by many visitors. The Ridgefield Park Boat Club boasted the fact that 75% of its members served in the armed forces in World War I. Those members were requested to march in the 4th of July parade in 1919, the first parade after the armistice, under the club banner in full uniform. This is the proud group after the parade. On the west side of Bergen Avenue, between Poplar and Preston Street, was the Pines Tennis Club. The club was formed around 1910, and this picture was taken around 1916. Some of the members were top-notch tennis players at county level. Years later, the activities were moved to an area to the south of Veterans Park. This picture is from 1921 and features the members of the Rotary Club, the first service club in the village. In this picture are 3 doctors, 2 lawyers, 1 bank president, and 6 leaders in the business community. This group worked diligently for the good of the community. Another local service club was the Kiwanis Club, chartered in June 1924. This picture is undated, but it shows a few Kiwanians in front of the Overpeck Park Hotel. Bill Warman, who owned the hotel, is second from the left. The charter of Ridgefield Park Kiwanis is inactive. This is Ridgefield Park's first uniformed police department in 1907. However, they were not our first lawmen. In 1889, when the population was about 200, The citizens were concerned about law and order. They formed the Ridgefield Park Protective and Improvement Association to protect the residents against thieves and marauders. Some good citizens were given the power to make arrests and were designated as constables. The man with the sword sitting on the left is Louis Euchre, who was the chief, and the man sitting to his left is Bill Malia, the captain. This is the police department in 1915. The man in the center of the back row is the chief, John McElroy, and to his right is Doc Ritter. The three men in civilian attire are the members of the first Board of Commissioners. From the left is Commissioner Dexheimer, Mayor Webben, and Commissioner Ayers. This is the police department in 1927. Standing in the center of the front row is Fred Larson, the police chief. This picture, which is undated, is Hackensack Road, which is now Main Street. The view is looking south from Preston Street. This quiet country lane is Mount Vernon Street, looking east from Spruce Avenue in 1903. You can see a little bit of Mergler's Corner and the top of another building further up the hill. This picture shows a piece of the old post office front porch, which was on the northeast corner. The water trough for the thirsty horses was there in 1904, and lying alongside the road, just past the intersection, were sewer pipes. The village trustees had a sewer committee, making plans in 1896, and by 1900, sewers were actually being installed. This is Hackensack Road, looking south from Park Street in 1912. The first building on the left side is A.D. Lee's Market, followed by a stationery store and a barber shop. The frame building next to the barber shop was a bowling alley and a pool parlor known as the Casino. Just beyond the real estate office was a pretty big lumber yard, and beyond is Mergler's Corner. Traffic was light and the village was quiet. This is the busy corner, Main Street and Mount Vernon, about 1919. The new bank building had been doing business for a few years. Mergler's store was still on the corner, as was the old post office on the opposite corner, and the building next to the bank is under construction. On the right side of Main Street, just north of the post office, is the local supermarket, a Daniel Reeves chain store. There was no parking problem on Main Street in 1916 when this picture was taken. The driver of the old retired racehorse is Joe Landy, with his father and brother Sam, standing in front of their tinsmith shop, which is now the IGA. Next to the Landy shop was the office of Charles Enders, who was a real estate developer and editor of the local paper The Bulletin, which he purchased in 1906. This is a street scene of Bergen Turnpike and Ridgefield Avenue taken after World War I had ended. You can see to the left a sign reading "Welcome Home." It could be seen by thousands of soldiers riding troop trains on the West Shore Railroad from the port of debarkation to Camp Merritt. A group of people are sitting on the porch of the Bausbach's Hotel, and a bit to the north you can see the front of the Crescent Arcade, one of the early motion picture theaters. On July 11th, 1896, the local newspaper, The Advertiser, lists Charles Mansfield as the winner of the prize for the best decorated wagon. Charles is sitting in the driver's seat on Paulison Avenue. This photo captures a group of women and children marching south along Hackensack Road between Cedar and Hobart Streets as they make their way towards the school grounds for an afternoon of fun and games. This group is riding in comfort on Hackensack Road in a well-decorated wagon. The uniforms worn by the young ladies point to a nautical theme, probably representing the boat club. The Ladies' Village Improvement Association awaits the signal to join the parade. The LVIA was a very active group of dedicated citizens. The picture was taken on Hackensack Road. In this 1909 or 1910 photo is the Grand Marshal of the 4th of July Parade, Archie Lees, the owner of A.D. Lee's Market. It was taken on Hackensack Road and Grove Street. Behind him is the Ladies' Village Improvement Association. The men in white trousers and red shirts are members of the Overpeck Hose Company No. 2. They are lined up in the back of their hose wagon that was pulled by the team of horses, probably borrowed from T.M. Brewster. The firemen in blue uniforms in front of the horses are members of Hook and Ladder No. 1. This picture might have been taken in 1906. In the mid to late 1920s, the 4th of July parade moved north on Main Street, and here you can see the governing body leading the parade past the old town hall. On your left is Commissioner Needham. In the center is Mayor McGowan, and on the far right is Commissioner Ferris. This is a picture of the 1897 4th of July program. It read, "For the love of nature, there is no other spot which combines the magnificent view and scenery. For the debilitated, there is no place where the air is more invigorating and the surroundings more sedative. For the energetic, there is no place which combines in greater degree the life of the city and the quiet of the country." As we look back across the decades, one thing becomes clear. Ridgefield Park has never been just a place on the map. It is a village shaped by determination, community spirit, and countless everyday moments that became its history. From its earliest settlers to the generations who continue to call it home, each chapter has added depth, character, and heart.